Okay, welcome everyone once again to Getting Started with Lego Education Spike Portfolio. I have with me today two of my friends and colleagues, Susan and Michelle, who are expert trainers and who will be walking you through how to unbox, activate, organize, update, rename, do all the things to make sure that you are ready for the school year. So I will go ahead and turn it over to them. Oops, I should probably introduce myself. I am Emily from Lego Education. If you are part of our customer success program, then you likely receive an email from me once a month to let you know about these kinds of webinars and other offerings. If you're not a member of our success program, then we'll give you that opportunity to join at the end of the webinar. But I'll be here. I'm going to turn off my camera. I'll be in the background answering questions, providing resources in the chat. But now I'm going to turn it over to Susan and Michelle so that they can introduce themselves and we can all get started. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. So this is our first webinar of the season to get everybody kind of back into the swing of things with back to school season. I'm Michelle. I am coming to you from New Hampshire, and it's a little rainy and chilly today, but I'm really excited to be here. I have been a Lego education teacher trainer since 2017. I absolutely love doing this. I am also a virtual high school teacher. So that is my other gig. So I'm excited to be here with you tonight, and I'll let Susan introduce herself.
Oh, hi all, welcome. My name is Susan McGrath. I am a Lego Education Implementation Specialist for the Central Region of the U.S., and I'm coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky. I was a math teacher for 24 years and then a digital learning coach in my district, and I am very excited to be here with you tonight and talk all things Spike, Prime, and Essential for getting started in your school year. We are actually starting school tomorrow here in Lexington, Kentucky. So really excited.
Great. So Susan's going to be running the slide deck, but we will probably toggle back and forth between having the slide deck up and also going live to the various web pages that we want to familiarize you with. Just as a matter of a little bit of housekeeping, we do have everyone muted, but please, if you have questions, thoughts, ideas, experiences that you want to share, put them in the chat area. Emily will be monitoring that. We will pause now and then to make sure that we've covered all of your questions. So although you won't have your voice ability, so to speak, we definitely want to encourage you to put those thoughts and questions into the chat area. Okay. As far as our agenda for the hour, we are going to go over unboxing the set. So what do we have in the sets themselves? And we will talk about your naming protocol, why it's important, how to label, and things like that. We will go through the whole process of labeling, and then downloading the app, the web app versus the native app, and connecting the hub, including updates, because that pops up frequently. And we'll go through renaming the hubs, go over where you can find the tutorials in the Spike app, and additional resources, including training services from Lego Education. So that's what we've got in store for the next 54 minutes. So I have no.
Michelle, you're muted, hon.
I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened. If you want to put in the chat whether you have a kit with you today, it doesn't matter whether you do or not, but I'm going to talk a little bit about exactly what you have in front of you or you'll have in your classroom. Right. So you'll see, and Susan was just holding hers up. It's a nice, durable, bright yellow box. You can't really miss it. One of the things that I love about the box itself is that it has that white lid that snaps in, and it has a lip on it. So it also doubles as a building tray. I highly encourage you to encourage your students to build on that lid. It kind of helps to prevent some of those Lego bricks from scattering, which we all know can happen fairly frequently. Okay, so you've got the box itself. You also have 2 different sorting trays with several different compartments. And to further help with your sorting and your continued organization, you have a sticker sheet. So if you have a brand new set, you're going to have a sheet with stickers on it. It tells you exactly where to put the stickers on the sorting tray. This makes it really efficient and easy for you and your students to keep your sets organized as you use them throughout the school year. When you're opening them for the first time, your Lego bricks and the various elements all come in pre-sorted and labeled bags, which is a lifesaver. That wasn't always the case, and I love now that you can just open the bag and dump it, for the most part, dump it exactly in the compartment that it needs to go in. So that initial setup is pretty easy. It doesn't take too long. And then you also have that really heavy duty cardboard insert. I call it the directions card that comes on the top there. Susan's got that, holding that up for you as well. And that is, that's got your directions. That shows you where everything goes, in addition to having those stickers on the side. So that's another way to help you inventory and know what goes where. You will notice that there are some elements that are shown on the outside, so on the edges of that card. That simply means that those pieces get stored in the bottom of that box. All those along the bottom and the edge, because that those storage trays kind of sit on top. Okay, so that's the box itself. The sticker sheet, you'll notice, also has blank white labels. So those will come in really handy when you start doing the labeling process. So you have lots of labels there for you as well. Okay. There are a total of 500 and, oh, I'm not there quite yet, but that's okay. There are a total of 528 elements in your box, and that includes the hub itself, so the brain of the system. That has a light matrix built in and a gyro sensor built in. You have 1 large motor and 2 medium motors, so a total of 3 motors with the Spike Prime, and a couple of 3 sensors. So you've got the force or the touch sensor, your distance sensor, and your color sensor. So I can see a few of you, and you're checking those out and playing with those. So that's fantastic. Okay. So that is what's in the box. Susan, did I miss anything, or is there anything else that you wanted to talk about as far as what's there?
No, I would say this is something when you get a set of kits for your school or your classroom, that you can have your students set up with you, or you could do ahead of time. The labeling and the hub naming, I would suggest you do ahead of time. So there's going to be a few things we talk about when we get into the app that I would suggest you do ahead of time, because the labeling is actually really important for success in your classroom, and we'll mention that later. It looks like Kim in the chat said if she had little kids, would Duplo be better? Yeah, we have many solutions that, Kim, we can talk about at the end of the webinar. Emily had put in about Spike Essential, which works great with littles as well. I've done that with kindergartners, so we can direct you to some resources for that. And then I don't know if you noticed on my top of my trays, which are set up, I have a type of wrap that I can't tell you the kind of wrap, but I like to wrap the tops, because if you were to tip the kit, sometimes the pieces will mingle in other trays. So if you have some kind of wrap that can go on top that you might press or seal to make it a little sturdier. And then, Michelle, did you want to talk maybe about the smaller connector pieces in the little salsa cup?
In the little, I'm sorry, the little what?
The salsa cups. What do we call those?
Oh, like little like condiment cup
Yeah,
things.
condiment cup with
Yeah,
lid.
so that's a nice way to keep all of those really tiny connectors kind of together and in one spot and without getting kind of spilled everywhere. Now Susan, do you typically use the disposable ones or something a little bit more durable?
I think the durable ones are better. Like if you can get a good plastic, and you can order them on Amazon and get, 100 for like, a few dollars, but or any place that you see, you might even go to your favorite restaurant and ask them if they have extras. But yeah, sometimes the littler pieces, like you'll see the black connector pieces in here. Some teachers have recommended to us that, having those in kind of a separate compartment can be helpful outside of the tray. And did you mention the number 13 bag for the Spike Prime?
I haven't yet.
Okay,
So there
that's
is
fine.
a number, thank you for reminding me of that actually. There is a number 13 bag. That happens to be spare elements. So definitely when you're opening everything up and sorting everything, pull that bag aside, and you want to keep that closed up and keep all of those number 13s locked in a closet somewhere. Don't don't just open them up and add them to the kit. You want to keep those for spare parts for your students, and you want to kind of keep control over those. So it'll make your life a lot easier when some pieces start going missing, to have those spare bags kind of all in one place and under lock and key. So that's, yeah,
Oh,
that's an important element
and I'm
as
going to
well.
pop in real quick. It looks like Ryan had his hand up in the chat area. Did you have a
Yeah,
question?
yeah. I was just going to ask, do you have an example of the little ramekin looking? How big? 3 inches deep?
Oh, the
How
little
deep?
salsa cup.
Yeah, yeah.
Shoot, I don't have one. Do I have one? Let me check. I'm trying to think. I do not, but they're no bigger than, Ryan, if you look at like the wheel that's in your kit there, if you have one, they're no bigger than that. So just a really small, and you can put them on the bottom of the kit, or you can kind of, they're not usually any higher than the tray, so you can kind of move some pieces over and keep them in there. Yeah, that's a good question. Sorry about that. There's also just a couple of minifigs in here as well. And I've come to realize that the minifigures sometimes go missing. Yeah, sometimes. So I usually use the minifigures as like a positive reinforcement at the end of a build where they can play, they can create like a scene, and then I always have my students, I either take pictures or I have them use their Chromebook camera to take a picture so they have a picture of their builds. And so that's when I'll pass out the minifigures. So I have at times pulled those out of sets and kept them in a separate area. But any kind of tips you guys have, if you have any tips, please share those, because we don't know all the things. We know some of the things, but we would love to hear any tips you have for organization or for classroom management.
And Kimberly had thrown in the chat that she has heard to use Ziplocs, and keep the separate Ziplocs in the tray. So anything that you can think of to keep things organized and neat will kind of make everybody's life easier in the long run. Another idea for inevitably those elements that do go rogue and end up on the floor after your students leave, to have kind of a lost and found jar, a very specific jar or box in a specific part of the room that everybody knows about. So if you are someone who, especially if you share your classroom or you have multiple classes coming in and out, so that anybody who finds that rogue element on the floor will pick it up and just put it in that jar, versus you end up with a couple on your desk at the end of the day, somebody picks one up and just throws it into a random box. Having that one dedicated spot for those missing pieces is very helpful as well. Okay. All right, so let's talk about naming a little bit. Like I said, there are labels in the on the sticker sheet, and there are plenty of labels to label your hub, all of your sensors, You also want to label the exterior of the box, and I highly recommend labeling the lid and the yellow box itself. I know it can seem like a little bit of overkill, but it's really nice to just make sure that all of the pieces, all of the elements for every set get kept together. So it is really important to use those labels. Highly recommend a fine permanent marker. I have tried several different types of writing implements. Permanent marker works the best, but it's going to be really important to also come up with a naming protocol. Now, if you're isolated and these are just your kits and you're not working with anybody else, you can just come up with your own naming protocol. So, in my case, for the sets that I have, I just have my last name and a number. So Dudek 1, Dudek 2, et cetera, et cetera. If you are part of a larger team or a school that is implementing and using the spike sets, then you may need to consult with your colleagues to decide what the best naming protocol is. But we strongly encourage you to have something that's consistent across the board. So whether it's your last name and a number or the initials of your school, again, whatever works for you, just keep in mind that you will be labeling all of your sensors, your hub, the box. You'll be renaming your hub to match that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's also essential to keeping everything together. So everything will kind of match. In addition to, so we are going to throw in some kind of classroom management tips as we go through here. In addition to naming everything, I like to suggest whenever possible to assign a group of students to a particular box. So it's one of the advantages to labeling them. So let's say I, just have 1 through 10 in my classroom, and I'm going to have Susan and Emily, they're a team for this unit, and this unit's going to take a month. So I want to assign them kit number 1, and that is their kit for the duration of this unit. So they are responsible for making sure that they keep all of their elements in the right compartments, that they pick up after themselves, that they don't take their minifig home or some other really cool element that they might find in there, because the next day when we're doing another part of a lesson or a new build, that's their kit to use. And if they've been careless, it's going to be hard for them to go through that next activity. So it has been super useful for teachers to kind of have that those assignments and have the kids responsible for a particular kit, at least for a unit, if not for a whole year. You can have a sheet so you know who's got what. And then if you find, a hub laying on the ground and it says number 1, I know who to go talk to the next day. Like, hey, Susan, maybe you should be a little more careful with your pieces. So. Okay, so that's one idea. Storage, sometimes storage can be an issue. If you have several of these, find some place that's secure. They are nice, sturdy boxes, so that is, and they're very stackable, so that is handy. But that's, someplace that doesn't have to be locked up, but if you can lock them up, that's always nice as well. Other thoughts?
Yeah, Kim's got a good question. She asked, how many students can you put per kit without causing chaos?
That is a great question. So ideally, you would want, in their design, for 2 students per kit. That makes for a nice one student kind of gets to be the builder, and the other one can either be the programmer or find the elements as the other person builds. So that is ideal. Obviously, you don't always have even numbers or you don't have enough kits. Certainly 3 works. It is really challenging with any more than 3. So I would shoot for 2 with a smattering of 3 if needed.
Kim is a special education teacher, so chaos is typical in the room. Kim, I might suggest that, and I've taught all different kinds of classes, done some co-teach classes. I would suggest, if you have time or you have some aides or someone that, or your team that can come in maybe in a PLC, and pull the pieces that you need for a lesson instead of offering up the whole kit. That can really save time. I had a teacher that went to a dollar type store and got a bunch of just small containers and brought those in. And then she had some of her student aides or teacher aides take what take building instructions, which we'll show you where those are in a moment. Take the building instructions and pull the pieces ahead of time. That way they're not looking at all of the shiny things that are in here, which are spectacular and wonderful, but they're only focused on what they need for that build. It's a little bit of work on the front end, but that can kind of keep the chaos down. Michelle mentioned sticking with the kit. Assigning them the same kit every time. And like she mentioned, the reasons for that accountability is huge for that because you're working only with your kit. So it's going to look the same way the next day that you left it. But yeah, so that kit, that is a tip I can think of. Michelle, do you have any other tips for Kim or for our other participants that might be helpful in that regard?
Not off the top of my head. I think we've hit on the big ones anyways.
All right.
Okay.
My turn.
Any other questions about naming protocol, what you need to label, anything along those lines? All right.
Okay, I'm gonna switch gears here for just a minute because I want to go out to the implement. And we're going to get into the app now. So I'm going to share my screen here. How are we doing? Everybody see my screen?
Looks good.
Thank you. All right. So this is one of your resources for all things Lego education. You can type in education.lego.com, legoeducation.com. I bet Emily will put it in the chat for you as well. You could Google
I already did.
Oh, girl.
It's in there.
Awesome. Thank you. And so this is where you can find this is complete. Everything on here is free. Once you purchase a set of kits, there is no subscription service, and as lessons are updated, you are not paying extra fees. This is one thing I loved as a teacher using Lego Education in my classroom is that the supports here are fantastic, and there are units already aligned with standards, and so lots of things. So when you go to that website, if you want to follow along here, or if you want to open up a tab and look at it yourself, there are two main drop downs on the upper right hand corner. Shopping is always fun, but most of you have a kit already. So let's go over to the teach. And so we will have future webinars that will cover things in this drop down. Today, we're going to mainly focus on getting you started so that if you're starting next week, you've got a handle on how to get started with your students. But we also will have a webinar on unit and lessons, on community. So those upcoming webinars, we will show you how to get registered for those at the end of our webinar today. I'm going to go to the Spike app and talk to you really quickly about the two types of ways that you can access the Spike app. And this app is for both Spike Essential, which Emily had talked about before in the chat there with the question, which is for our younger students, K. You can take it up to 5th grade if you wanted to. And then also for Spike Prime, which I have had 4th graders use all the way up to high school. We've got supports for those. So I am on a Windows machine right now. This will automatically detect my computer. And if you are going to use the native app, we call it native because it was the first one that we had, and it will hang out on your computer. And we'll talk about the main differences when we get into the web app. This might require you, if you don't have this on your student devices or your own teacher device, it might require you to go to your IT department for permissions. I know that in my district, we did not have permissions to do downloads on our devices, but you could maybe send this link over to your IT or your tech and have them do the download. I wanted to just mention this works with Macs, it works with Chromebooks, Android devices, tablets, and iPads. It will not work with phones. You won't have that capability. So if you wanted to download the app, like if you're on your own personal device right now, you would go right here and click the download. I'm not going to do that because I want to show you the web app. Which is also an option here. You can go drop down over here next to the download and choose launch web app, and that will get going for you. We suggest that you use Chrome for that web app, which I'm in right now, and it's best served in that in the Chrome app. We've seen less issues there. And then if you don't want to direct students to this page, you can direct them right to, if you wanted to put in your LMS or write it on the board or whatever you want to do. It is at spike.legoeducation.com, which Emily already put in the chat for you. I'm going to go over there because I already have it opened up. Actually, I'm going to redo that because mine's already done.
Oh, Susan, before you move ahead, Kimberly asks if this works with Kindle tablets from Amazon.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I don't believe they do either.
I don't believe it does. But it would be nice to read and also do your Spike. Okay, so when you get to spike.legoeducation.com, you're going to have your choice of solution here. Again, Spike Essential or Spike Prime. I'm going to go to Spike Prime because I have my Spike Prime set out. But you could do either. It's going to be very similar platform if you're in Spike Essential. Highly recommend that you start with the Getting Started. This is a wonderful set of 6 tutorials for your students to use. I love to use this at the beginning of the year within the first 2 weeks just to get my students oriented. There's some really fun activities you can do just with the hub to have them introduce themselves. You can even do SEL with it. It's a great, just the hub itself is great. So I'm actually going to just open up the Getting Started for you just so you can kind of get a taste of that. And these are self-guided. You would want to show your students what we're going to do next, which is how you connect the hub to their device. But I have found that my students have figured it out on their own before I even get there. So don't be afraid to play around. You can't break it. So it could be where you could just have them figure it out if you wanted to, but we're going to get you started so you feel more comfortable with it if you haven't done it before. I'm going to go to the light matrix. You're going to see here it's going to have card numbers up top that are kind of the slides to lead them through it. There'll be a picture. There's also accessibility with reading the directions, which you can't see on that right now. Once I hit the arrows, it'll take me to my next step and it will have basically showing us where to go. I'll explain all of these parts. We've got a nice slide that'll label all the parts, but to connect the hub, you obviously are going to hit your hub connection button up here, this icon. And Michelle had mentioned before that you might need to update the hub. It might ask you, you can tell by the color on the hub itself when you turn it on, if it needs an update. So to turn it on, there's 2 buttons on your hub over here. And there's a big button at the bottom of the hub. You will have to have your students put in the battery, which is part of your kit. This is a rechargeable battery. It doesn't take any other battery but this. It will come from the warehouse, usually with a 40% charge. So you could probably do an activity or so with the charge that's on here, but they will need to be charged from time to time. 40% start if you have like a USB charging station, or they will charge as they're plugged into a student device with the USB cable that comes in your kit. Okay, I am going to stop for a moment because that was a ton before we really get into the next steps. Do we have any questions in the chat? Or
Мне очень плохо, потому что I almost went to the emergency. I started throwing up.
okay, looks like Magdalena, I hope I'm saying her name right, said, where can we buy spare parts? We actually, on our website, I'll show you when we pop out of here, if you remind me, I'll show you where you can, if you lose parts or you have broken parts, there's a great support system on that website there.
Once we name our hubs, can we rename them?
Yes, I'll show you
Yes.
that in just a moment. Yeah, that's a great question. Wireless charging of the hubs. That would be wonderful. And that might be a possibility for the future, Norman. But I haven't heard anything at this point. Good question. Okay,
And
I'm
there are
gonna
a lot of
oh, go ahead.
So a lot of teachers will buy their towers that have that you can plug the hubs into, that have those USB ports built right into them. And at the end of the day, all of the hubs get charged every single night. So that's one, not quite what you're looking for, but that's one solution.
Yeah, and Norman, we'll talk about Bluetooth. If your students have Bluetooth capability on their devices, that can help with that wear and tear of the USB cords. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, so I turned mine on and I have a green button, but I didn't when we started before the webinar. So I had to do an update. Our updates in the web app and in the native app are pretty quick with the new updates that we've had. The other button that's on your hub real quick is your Bluetooth button. So if you did want a Bluetooth, you've got that there. You also have arrow keys next to your power button, which take you through the programs. You can store up to 20 programs that are named by number on the hub itself. You'll also see that you have 6 inputs on each, 3 on each side, and those are for the sensors and motors. So you've got those as well. Oh, I got you daily charging. Yes, sir. Yeah, Norman, thank you for clarifying. Okay, so now I'm going to hit my green button here. And then this is our choices for connection. We can do, it'll show the steps for your students. You've got it turned on. The Bluetooth you would turn on, and I'm not going to turn mine on because it wouldn't stop beeping at me before when I was with the cable. So I'm just going to leave it there. And then if I want to use the USB cable for my connection, which there are pros and cons to that, I would hit down here, which I'm going to do. But if you're using Bluetooth, you would just hit open right here. There's also a video to show your students how to do that in the bottom left-hand corner. So now I am using a USB cable and I'm going to hit open. It's going to pull up a pop-up window that is going to ask if I want to connect to the serial port. And so I'm going to click on that. This is one step students kind of get stuck on, is you actually have to click the actual device that comes up. And this is where the naming is really important. Because if I'm doing Bluetooth, or I'm doing, if I'm doing Bluetooth, this, you might have a ton of different names that come up. If they're in a tight space, you might have McGrath 1, McGrath 2, McGrath 3, Emily 5, Emily 10, Emily 6, all showing up at the same time. Okay. And so that is an issue in terms of being, in terms of classroom management with connecting to the correct device. Ways around that, while I'm hitting connect here, are having your students go in order to connect, like whoever's number 1, connect first, number 2, connect 3, but having those norms set ahead of time can be really helpful. Or you can trust that they will connect to the label that's on their kit, and that, or the label that is on their hub. Because if you have those all labeled, then there isn't as much. We all know somebody's going to want to connect to somebody else's. So that is just where you have to be careful. And it's why I like what Michelle said before about having the name even on the lid. You're not even having to, if the box is on top with the lid on top, you can see the name that should match what's on their screen. And I'll show you the renaming as well here that goes with that. In terms of the renaming and naming, now I see that I have a green circle and a green check. So that is a way that I can check that the student is connected. Sometimes that connection will come loose. That's the first protocol in troubleshooting, is to make sure that we are connected and connected to the right device. I'm going to show you the renaming real quick, just so we don't, because it's so important. If you're starting out for the first time with your device, it should pull up the naming right away. So this will not be the screen that you see when you first connect, but because I've connected before, unfortunately, I can't show you that screen, but you may be seeing it right now. It will bring up an update, and then the next step will be for you to name the device. So that's for first-time users only. Once that's been named, that won't pull up again, unless it's doing some massive update. But when I am connected and I click on this icon, I can see my nickname, sorry, is up here, and then I get a lot of information about the hub. And this again was just by clicking that hub again. I usually don't show this to students unless I'm in a lesson that's going to need them to look at some data, or if I'm having trouble and I don't know like what they're connected to, but I don't even really need this for that. I'll show you just in a second here. In here, I can see the hub update, the charge for my battery, a disconnect, some information from that read on the internal gyro in here. And then I can even drop down and look at some other data that can come into play. But again, this would be if I'm doing some intermediate or advanced builds in my classroom. So I don't tell students to click on that icon unless it's necessary for the lesson. And then if I want to rename, like I've had some clever name and now I need to change it, I'm going to go to rename, and then I'm going to type in my unique name. And so I'll just do Susan this time and a 1. And again, I want that to match what my kit label is. And it does it right away. Any questions at all? All right, I could just go through really quickly. This is our programming canvas. In these tutorials, it actually shows the students how to drag and drop. In our guided lessons, most of the programming is done for you. So once the student goes through the lesson cards here that can be made bigger or smaller, as they click through, it will actually show them the coding. So if you're not up to the Scratch-based programming, which is provided in Spike Prime. It's not hard for the students to still follow along. And in our lessons, we also provide coding answer keys, if you will. Sometimes the coding is wrong, like the lesson may be that they're trying to figure out the coding. And so it will also give you some answers for those, and alternatives, also differentiation and lots of other stuff. Down here in the bottom corner is the play. So this is what's going to send that information to your hub. You have the program number here and a stop button, which is sometimes really helpful, especially if you're in Bluetooth. You can also hit the power button to stop any program. And you can see I've got a smiley face now. I don't know if you can see it because my USB cable is way over here. I love this for SEL. Like, they can click on this icon and they can tell you how they're feeling and hold up their hub. They can put their initial, lots of things they can do in this program to differentiate. You can even have them do it with simple numbers to answer a question. You could do it with multiple choice. It's almost like a little clicker for those of us that are old school and have been teaching a long time. There's lots of things you can do with this in the classroom as well. And then I keep clicking. It says change the light. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to click on these, do a little wink. And then I hit play when I want to send that new program. It will not automatically send. You have to hit play to have that send it to the hub. Once I am done, it will take me to the next lesson. Spike Essential actually has icon blocks as well as word blocks. So you can start your littles off with a picture-based programming and then move on to the Scratch-based programming. Spike Prime also has Python-based programming as well. All right. Go back to our deck here. And again, all that can be found in that Spike app and spike.legoeducation.com, or you can use the native app and there'll be an icon that you can have on your desktop. And we went through that. Ta-da. Again, I highly suggest having your students go through this tutorial. It only uses what you see here and then a few bricks. It doesn't use, it's not a thought out lesson. It's just a great place to start with your students. Takes you through all of the motors and sensors so they get a view. This is what you'll see, these simple pieces that they can find in their trays. Great way to get them used to the trays and how to read the stickers on the trays and their card. And then just short, we kind of went over most of this, but also your students will only see in our tutorial and guided lessons, only see the programming blocks they need for the lesson. So it's not showing you all of the programming blocks in the Scratch-based programming. If you were to go down to underneath here in the programming block section, if you click on the little snowman here, the 3 ... you can actually differentiate for your students that may be moving a little faster, and you can show them more than is needed for the lesson itself. And they can add sounds or they could add different things to that lesson to make it more robust for them. I would suggest that if you have time before school starts, if you have your own littles at home or you have big littles at home, it's a lot of fun to try a build and go through the tutorial. Or if you have people in your PLC or your team, we would suggest trying a tutorial activity ahead of time, or even one of our lessons. One of my favorite lessons to start out with is the hopper and also break dance. And those are really fun activities just to get them engaged. They are standards aligned, but also just some great ones to build your classroom norms and get students started. Michelle, do you have any other suggestions for that?
I was going to actually suggest both of those, but breakdance is a blast. You can have a dance party, but definitely play around with it on your own beforehand. Find somebody to build and play with. It's a lot of fun. If you have an extra, I call it extra, but a set that you can dedicate as your teacher set, like you assign sets to different students, have one that you can kind of keep as your teacher set. It is nice to be able to make sure that all of your elements are there and sorted, so that you can regularly check out the different activities before you have your students do them.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, so Madalena had asked if, like, where to find resources like the units in the builds. And I'm gonna actually let you, if you don't mind, Susan, if you could show her where in the app to find those, that would be great. And then we could talk about, like, I might actually show them through Community where to access all of the lessons, because it has all of the other activities as well.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we got here, and I'm going to go back to the home page by using the home icon that's in the top corner. Also, I'm so glad we're here. Difference between the web app and the native app. On the native app, which is from the downloaded app on their device, programs will be saved automatically. And the next time they open the app, on the downloaded native app, they will see the programs they already worked on. If they're on the web app, they will have to save to their device. So regardless of what device they're on, they will have to save their project if it is something that they need to save. For example, if they're doing robotics, or sometimes Python programs need to be worked on the next day. But if this is something that they're going to have a few days to build on, and they're taking their device somewhere, they're not on a desktop or whatever, you might have them save. That's the big difference between the web app and the native app, is that on the web app, one more time, web app, they need to save. It does not automatically save. When they go to the home here, there we go, home. If they're on the native app, they will see their projects right here. So this strip will actually have projects that they've had, that they've opened. If they're on the web app, they'll use Open Project to find those either on their Google Drive or a OneDrive, or wherever they've saved those. So this is where we opened up and where we started. And this is where those unit plans are in the app. You also have building instructions here, but the building instructions, I'll go through one here in a minute, I'll show you where those are already in the lesson for the students. And by the way, what you're seeing right now is exactly what the students see. So there is not a different platform for students. Even though we have resource platforms for teachers, you're seeing the exact same thing here that they will see when you want them to get started. Again, we recommend this for the tutorials, but let's say you want to do the hopper or the breakdance for your first guided lesson. So I'm going to click on the unit plans here, and then I will need to know what unit they're in. If I'm on the web app, these units are already ready available. If I'm on the native app, students will have to download these unit cards. And they just click on it, it'll say download, it won't let them in yet. It's really easy to do. I'm going to go to Invention Squad here. And then I can scroll down. As a student, I'm doing the same thing. Like, this is how I'm getting to the lessons to use the Spike Prime app and the kit in my classroom. So I'll go down here to the hopper. This is where your students will hit start. You'll also see here is viewing lesson plans and teacher support, which I'm going to let Emily show you through Community in just a moment. This has so many great resources for you as a teacher. It literally has the whole lesson mapped out for you if you'd like to use it, but it's very flexible in terms of what you want to do. You'll see the 5E is the structure of those lessons with guided questions, with the separate building instructions, with a student worksheet, an online worksheet, with everything you could need, differentiation, math and ELA extensions, the standards, the learning objectives. It's all in these lesson plans here, which Emily will show you in a moment. I'm going to click on the hop array start, and then it will open it up. So your students will do what I just did, and they'll get a lesson card with a video to get them excited. They'll watch the video, or you can show them that in the lesson plan. And then here is the next step. And here are the build instructions. And so they'll click on build, and it will take them out to the building instructions, and then it will close this when they're finished. And so students can scroll through this, which I'm going to do really fast. If you attend our next webinar, which is unit and lesson plans, we will go through a whole lesson for you. But that's how that works. So I'm going to get out of here and let Emily talk to you about the community and how you can find those lesson plans for teachers.
Oh, thanks, Susan. And before we move on, I saw that Victor had his hand up, and now Kevin has his hand up. So Victor, if you still have a question, you're welcome to pop off a mute or to put it into chat, but we want to make sure that, folks get their questions answered.
No, I was just asking how the kids, I know you said that they can save to their Google Drive, and I'm using the native app on my computer. And so I saw where there's like, under file, save as.
Yes,
is that
it will go
the same thing
right
on the web-based?
Yes, sir. Yes, it will go right to their Google Drive. It actually, you'd want to show them there is some storage, probably, as you know, like on the Chromebook itself, but make sure that maybe they have a folder for your class, and then they have like where they can put the lessons. I would just, because they can save it on the Chromebook, and it will show them that option in the list. But it's very Google. That's why I like using Chrome. So. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Victor. And then Kevin, did you have a question too?
Yeah, I did. So I was wondering if there's any additional lessons outside of those unit plans.
Yes.
I swear I'd been playing around with it on the summer, and I swear I saw a whole Python course, like a Python course. But now I don't see it on the app, and I'm wondering where I found it before.
Sure.
Or there's just more intricate builds and stuff.
Yeah, here's a great lead in.
Yeah, it was a perfect lead in. I feel like you were a plant, Kevin. So thank you. This is awesome. Okay, so I'm putting into the link or into the chat the link to the community. And I'm going to share my screen too, so that you guys can see what the community is all about. So this spring, we did a quick little redesign and a relaunch of the community. So if you haven't been here for a while, I highly recommend that you pop in. And I've aggregated all of our resources into one place, so you don't have to go searching for it. So first of all, and this is just the homepage, district site and classroom prep. So earlier I had put in a link to, for example, the device compatibility and connectivity. So I have those kinds of resources here for you too. Again, all in one place, resources that your school or district might need to whitelist so that you can, access all of our stuff, that kind of thing. Next there is that, the Lego Learning Solution resources. So everything from some of your element overviews to your unboxing tips. If you want to have your students unbox these kits for you, which I highly recommend, put those guys to work. There's a student deck that you can use and modify. So there's all sorts of good stuff in here, and then some classroom prep ideas and some ideas for managing your students and managing all of the little materials that they'll be working with. So that's kind of one thing to point out. I'm just going to go back home so that you can see that all of this stuff is accessible from the home page. We do have some standards alignments. We'll probably offer another webinar just specific to that. But this is the money page right here, guys, this lessons and inspiration. So from here, I've included not only all of the Lego education unit and lesson plans, but I also have learning progressions. So if you're thinking about, hey, I want to layer in some ELA, or I want to figure out like, how do I align the scope and sequence to maybe my science instruction? There's some resources here that'll help you. Going down a little bit further, we have some STEAM placemat activities that MIT helped develop. We have skill builders. Here's your computer science courses, Kevin. So those are actually in legoeducation.com, but again, I put them here just so that they're super easy to find. We have, say goodbye to summer, but we do have our summer camp programs here as well. And then ancillary activities that you can use for standalone instruction, or that you can layer into your other instruction, such as Build to Launch, the cool project that we did with NASA, Rebuild the World, about learning about different kind of STEAM careers, Build the Change, competitions. So yeah, so I put everything on one page so that you can always find it. I do want to take half a second to look at the actual LEGO education unit and lesson plans. Susan did a great job of teeing that up as well. So again, you can get to that from education.lego.com. But again, I'm trying to push everybody to access stuff through community so that you see all of the resources together. But here's where you would see the large overviews of units. And then also those individual lessons. You can search by product, grade, and subject, as you see at the top. You can search by name. I'm just going to open up one of these so that you can see a little bit of what Susan was talking about before. It's going to give you all of your teacher supports over here on the right. So, what are the objectives? What's the standards alignment? What other resources will you need? If there's any student worksheets, those will be there too. And then this will break down the lesson into that 5E model. So it will give you some ideas about how to facilitate this with your students. It will give you additional questions to ask of your kids. It'll give you ideas for feedback. So there's a lot of great resources here within those lessons as well. I know I did that in like 30 seconds or less.
You did. We only have
Susan.
like 1 minute left. Let me
Okay,
share real
so
quick so that they can see the upcoming webinars. Is that okay?
Perfect. Yep,
Okay.
that would be great. And I'm going to pop that link into the chat as well.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, are you going to show that, or am I?
No, I'll do it. I can do it.
Okay,
You want me to
perfect.
do it?
Please.
Can you see it? I think you just see
Yes.
it here. Okay. Shoot. I should have had you do it.
So we have, well, I put the link into the chat, so that takes you directly to the upcoming webinars, and also where we have some of our prior webinars posted. But we're doing a cool skills-based series at the kickoff of school here. We did one last week around questioning. Tomorrow's is around using models effectively in your classroom instruction, because we're thinking about like, how do we start laying the foundation for like really solid student learning outcomes using LEGO education resources. So like I said, first questioning, now modeling. Next week we'll do computational thinking. And then the following week, which I believe is on the 30th of August, it's around data collection using LEGO education, and sense making around that data collection. So if you're interested in those webinars, you're welcome to sign up for any or all of them.
And that QR code will take them right to the registration. Am I right?
That's correct. That's correct. Okay. And then the final slide that you have there, and I'll pull up that link as well. That's for joining our customer success program. And that's how you will hear about these kinds of webinars. I'll email you just once a month about what upcoming events we have. And right now, when you sign up, you'll get a free download of icon blocks. So if you're using Spike Essential, this is a great way to introduce your students to what that icon-based block coding looks like. You can use it for whole group instruction. You can print it off, give it to the kids, and they can do kind of a manipulative at their desk while the other kid maybe does the digital coding. So you can use them in lots of different ways. Great way to kick off the year in using our Spike resources. All right, we are only 1 minute over, but if you have any final questions, we can hang out for just a few minutes to answer those questions. Norman asks if there's a large poster version. So those icon blocks, they're in actually a PowerPoint slide deck. So you can project them if you want, or you can make a copy of that slide deck, I believe, and and manipulate it that way. And if it's not in a workable format for you, you're welcome to email me at success@lego.com, and I can send you the resource in a different format.
Great. Thank
Sweet.
you guys so much.
Yeah, great questions. Oh, when you sign up for Success, it'll send you an email with a download, or you can email me and I can just send you a copy of that picture. All right, guys. Oh, Kevin has another question.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, sorry guys. So using those additional resources, Emily, that you showed us,
yeah,
would that be able to get downloaded to the students' apps as well, so that they can see all the steps on their own like web app? Is there like a link? Because I know just through, I haven't been through those, but I know like through using the app, you kind of needed to sync in with the hub. Do those lessons do the exact same thing?
So they don't. Those are kind of ancillary special programs. So they're not embedded in as part of the app resources. So, and again, that's why I put them all on the same page so that you can see everything that we offer, because it's not always going to all populate in the app for you.
Got it. Okay.
Then they would just start with a blank canvas there, Kevin, like just new project, and then support them that way. Yeah. So there's a way for they can just like open program, but you have those resources.
Perfect. They would start a new project and write whatever code it needs to be, and then that's how that syncs into the hub. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying, Susan.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, everybody. Again, if you have any more questions, pop them into chat or come off of mute. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining us. Have an awesome school year. You guys have my email address, so let me know if there's anything that you guys need.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.